Did you know that you're not perfect? You're human, and therefore you make mistakes all the time. So do the people around you, even the really, really brilliant and successful people. Isn't it funny that we all agree with these statements in theory, but getting ourselves to truly believe them is almost impossible? On this episode of Reaction Reset, we're talking about perfectionism. It's perplexing how people can forgive the mistakes of others, but flog themselves when it comes to their own failures and shortcomings. If you can relate to this, you may be a perfectionist. Here's some other signs you may struggle with perfectionism. You set unrealistically high standards for yourself and or those close to you. You strive to be flawless and are extremely critical when you're not. You never settle for good enough, whether it's at work, home, or a hobby. You're obsessive about making things meet your standards, and life doesn't feel right if something falls short. For example, a house that isn't perfectly clean or a letter that isn't perfectly written will haunt you and make you miserable. While perfectionists may be loved in the office since their high standards transfer to their work, perfectionism can spell disaster in relationships. So let's get into why people develop this personality trait. Perfectionism is genetic and environmental. The way you were parented affects the person you become, but so do such things as birth order, where you grew up, and how many siblings you had. If you're an only child or the firstborn, you have a greater tendency to experience perfectionistic behaviors in your life. Why? Because you're the only child surrounded by all these adults. You don't have a buffer between your parents and siblings. Your parents focus only on you, and because you're all they have, their expectations may be unrealistically high. If your parents had conditional love, meaning they would base their love on your behavior or achievements, you grow up feeling as though you'll never be good enough. Critical parents raise children who set unrealistically high standards, and they become anxious or depressed if they don't achieve them. There are many types of perfectionists. There are ones with unrealistic expectations for themselves, for others, or a mixture of both. It's also important to consider where those expectations come from. Some perfectionists create their own expectations while others perceive expectations, either from society, work, or family. They believe others have set standards that they must meet. Unfortunately, perfectionists rarely realize their expectations are unrealistic. And if they project those expectations onto their children or spouse, it can be unbearable to live with them. Anyone living under those standards will constantly feel incompetent, foolish, and not respected. Perfectionism doesn't just affect relationships, it can make it miserable to live with yourself. Impossible standards lead to harsh criticism. The high levels of self-criticism leave no room for grace or self-love and can lead to depression or severe anxiety. Since a perfectionist can be self-righteous or obsessive about their standards, they are extremely unlikely to ask for help. After all, asking for help would be admitting you can't handle something on your own. There's an old saying that continues to circulate that has contributed to much of the stigma of mental illness. The quote goes something like this: "We don't show our dirty laundry to our neighbors." Basically, this means that you cover or hide imperfections. So let's talk about how to reset this reaction to perfectionism. The first thing you need to do is give yourself permission to make mistakes. When you make a mistake, instead of rushing over to cover it up, re-examine it and see what it can teach you. Be honest with your mistakes when you're talking to others too. Secondly, shift your focus away from yourself and consider the numerous people you're hurting. For example, your need for perfectionism limits your ability to have friends over for a casual get-together or a meal because your house must be in perfect order. This limits your ability to be real with other people, making it almost impossible for your friends to feel close or accepted with you. Do what you think is the right thing to do instead of trying to assess everyone else's opinion of your decision. Being brave enough to make a decision while taking responsibility for the possible consequences is something many perfectionists struggle with. Compare yourself to yourself. Perfectionistic people compare themselves to others constantly, heightening their feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, and self-censoring. There will always be people ahead of you and behind you. A better idea is to compare yourself to you. Note the areas you've made improvements in. Create a healthier environment of colleagues and friends. The people you surround yourself with influence your perfectionistic tendencies. It will be more difficult to stop being a perfectionist if the people you spend the most time with are perfectionists. Set firm boundaries with who you engage with. You also need to control the websites, the publications, and the social media you subscribe to. What you consider beautiful or successful or meaningful in your life should not be determined by an advertising company. We live in the era of photo filters and social media perfection. Our society often judges people by their utility and success. Whether or not you're a perfectionist, we all fight a hard battle every day to be kind to ourselves. This week, be kind to yourself and to your loved ones. Remember, change your reaction, change your world.